In Kumasi, Ghana, there lived a young woman named Adwoa Serwa. Her family was well known in the community. Her father, Kwabena Serwa, was a respected trader, and people admired their family's reputation. But Adwoa wasn't just known because of her family. She had something special about her. While many young women in Kumasi followed the usual path, Adwoa chose something different. She had studied hard, gone to university, and built her own small tech company right in the city. Her business wasn't big, but it meant a lot to her. She didn't just write computer programs. She taught other young women how to code as well. Every weekend, she opened her office to girls who wanted to learn web development and app creation. Her classes were simple but full of energy. Adwoa would stand in front of a small group, showing them how to write their first lines of code. Her voice was calm, her hands steady on the keyboard. Slowly, more people noticed what she was doing. Some of her videos teaching Python coding started spreading on Ghanaian social media. People shared clips of Adwoa explaining how to build websites, smiling and encouraging her students. In a place where most people expected women to stay in traditional roles, Adwoa was showing a new way. She didn't dress like a typical businesswoman. Sometimes she wore jeans and a simple top while teaching. Other times, she wore colorful Ghanaian fabrics with pride. Her focus wasn't on fame or money. She just wanted to help other girls believe they could do more. Though she was young, people began calling her the tech sister in town. Her small office became a place of learning and hope. Still, not everyone understood her path. Some whispered that she should be thinking about marriage, not computers. But Adwoa didn't let those voices stop her. Every day, she showed up at her office, ready to teach, ready to work, and ready to show the girls of Kumasi that their future could be bigger than anyone imagined. One afternoon, something unexpected happened in Adwoa Serwa's quiet life. Envoys dressed in rich Kent cloth arrived at her family's home. They came carrying gifts, gold bracelets, bottles of wine, and carefully wrapped parcels. The visitors brought a message from Chief Kofi Ampansa, one of Kumasi's wealthiest and most respected men. The chief had seen Adwoa and wanted her as his wife. For her family, this wasn't just a marriage proposal. It was a dream. Marrying into royalty meant status, wealth, and honor. Her mother's eyes filled with joy. Her aunts whispered among themselves, already imagining the celebration. Even her father, known for being strict and serious, looked pleased. Everyone in the house assumed Adwoa would say yes. After all, who wouldn't want to become the wife of a chief? But while her family smiled and talked excitedly, Adwoa's heart felt heavy. She didn't see the proposal the same way they did. To her, it felt like a trap. Becoming the chief's wife would mean leaving behind her tech company, her coding classes, and her dreams. It would mean sitting quietly beside a man who valued her for her name, not her mind. That evening, as her parents waited for her answer, Adwoa stood calmly in the middle of the living room. Her voice was steady but clear. "I cannot marry Chief Ampansa," she said. "I have my own dreams." The room fell silent. Her mother's smile disappeared, replaced by shock and tears. Her father's face turned cold, his jaw tight. The envoys left, their gifts untouched. Outside, neighbors watched as whispers began spreading. Adwoa didn't waver. While others saw the chief's proposal as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, she saw it as the end of everything she had worked for. In that moment, she chose her own path, knowing it would not be easy. Her refusal wasn't just a personal decision. It was a message, loud and clear, that her life would not be shaped by tradition alone. The evening after the chief's envoys visited, the house felt heavy with silence. Everyone waited for Adwoa's answer, believing she would agree. But Adwoa stood tall in the center of the living room, her voice calm yet firm. She looked her parents in the eye and said, "I cannot marry Chief Ampansa. I have my own dreams." The words hit the room like a loud clap of thunder. Her mother, Akojua, gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes almost instantly. She sat down, sobbing, unable to believe her daughter had refused such an offer. Her father, Kwabena, didn't say a word. His face turned stiff and unreadable, eyes dark with disappointment. His silence spoke louder than words. News traveled quickly. The chief had sent for Adwoa, and she had turned him down. In Kumasi, that wasn't just a refusal. It was seen as disrespect. Chief Ampansa himself was furious. He felt insulted, humiliated that a woman from an ordinary family would reject him. His pride was wounded. People in the market whispered behind their hands. "Did you hear what Adwoa Serwa did? She refused the chief." Even distant relatives began calling Adwoa selfish and stubborn. Her family's name, once respected, now became linked with gossip and judgment. Akojua couldn't walk through the market without hearing quiet comments. Kwabena went to his shop with a face like stone, ignoring everyone. At home, things were worse. Her mother cried quietly at night, while her father barely spoke to her. But through it all, Adwoa stayed steady. Though her heart ached for her family's pain, she couldn't betray herself. Becoming the chief's wife would have meant giving up her company, her students, and everything she'd built. She wasn't born just to sit in silence beside a powerful man. She had her own path. The days felt long and lonely, but she reminded herself why she made her choice. Even as the city talked and her family turned away, Adwoa held her head high, refusing to let regret touch her. In just a few days, Adwoa's quiet refusal became the loudest story in Kumasi. Everywhere people gathered, markets, street corners, salons, they spoke her name. "Adwoa Serwa disrespected the chief," they whispered, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Her face was no longer just known for teaching coding. Now it carried a mark of shame in many eyes. When her mother, Akojua, went to buy food, women stopped talking as she walked by, watching her with pity or judgment. Her father, Kwabena, once greeted with respect, now walked past silent stares and turned faces. Even family members from far towns called. Aunties and uncles who barely spoke before now had plenty to say. They called Adwoa selfish. They said she had thrown away not just her own future, but the family's honor. Her mother begged her to change her mind. Her father stopped speaking to her altogether, his silence colder than any word. At home, the house that once felt warm now felt like walking on sharp stones. There were no more cheerful dinners, no light conversations. Just quiet, heavy with disappointment. Adwoa felt the weight of it all. She wasn't made of stone. Some nights, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had done the right thing. But each morning, she got up, dressed, and went to her small tech office. Her students were still waiting. Her coding lessons still mattered. She knew giving up now would only prove everyone right, that a woman's worth was tied only to marriage and not her own work. On her way to the office, she walked through those same markets where people whispered. She kept her head high, eyes forward, steps steady. She wouldn't hide. Adwoa held her ground even as everything around her seemed to push against her. Alone in her room at night or surrounded by quiet stares in public, she repeated her truth to herself. She was not born to follow a path made by others. She would create her own. Even with all the pressure and whispers around her, Adwoa refused to let herself break. She pushed everything else aside and focused on her tech company. Each morning, she unlocked her small office and welcomed the girls who came to learn. At first, there were just a few sitting quietly with notebooks. But Adwoa didn't stop. She made her lessons easier, more fun, teaching web development and app creation step by step. Her goal wasn't to become famous. She just wanted the girls in Kumasi to believe coding wasn't just for men. Slowly, her classes grew. More and more young women showed up, eager to learn. Adwoa began filming her lessons with her phone, uploading short videos online. She explained how to build websites, how to write simple Python codes. One day, without warning, one of her videos exploded on Ghanaian social media. Thousands of people watched it, sharing it with friends. Comments poured in. People were impressed by how Adwoa taught coding in a way that felt easy and real. Her face, once known for refusing the chief, now trended for something else entirely, teaching tech. That's when someone new saw her video. Kwesi Boateng, a well-known software engineer from Accra, happened to scroll past one of her clips. Her calm way of explaining coding caught his attention. Kwesi had worked with big tech companies, but he had never seen anyone teaching coding like this in Kumasi. Curious, he sent Adwoa a message. At first, it was just about work. He offered ideas, suggested ways to grow her school. Adwoa replied, open to learning more. Their chats turned into calls. Calls turned into long conversations about life, dreams, and building things that mattered. For the first time in months, Adwoa felt seen for who she really was. Not as the girl who refused a chief. Not as a daughter bringing shame. But as a woman building something with her own hands. Through that one viral video, she found not only a bigger purpose but someone who understood her world. And her story. Kwesi Boateng lived in Accra, working as a skilled software engineer. He wasn't the type to spend much time on social media, but one evening, while scrolling through his phone, he paused at a video. It was Adwoa, explaining Python coding in a calm, clear voice. Something about her caught his attention, not just her knowledge but the way she made coding feel simple and real. Curious, Kwesi sent her a message. It was short and professional. He introduced himself, mentioned her video, and offered to share some ideas on growing her classes. Adwoa didn't expect the message. At first, she kept things businesslike, replying politely. But as they exchanged more messages, it felt easy talking to Kwesi. Soon, they weren't just discussing apps or websites. They talked about life, about how hard it was chasing dreams when people expected something else from you. Adwoa shared her story about refusing the chief. Kwesi didn't judge. Instead, he admired her courage. As weeks passed, their chats turned into late-night calls. They'd laugh over little things, sometimes working on coding projects together while talking for hours. Kwesi visited Kumasi one weekend, saying he wanted to see Adwoa's coding school in person. When they finally met face-to-face, there was no awkwardness, just two people who already felt connected. Kwesi walked through her small office, watching the girls learn, and he smiled. He wasn't interested in Adwoa for her family name or status. What drew him in was her mind, her drive, the way she lit up while teaching. Unlike Chief Mpansa, who only saw Adwoa as someone to add to his list of wives, Kwesi saw her as an equal, a partner. Over time, what started as friendship turned into something deeper. It wasn't rushed. It grew quietly, like coding a program line by line. Adwoa felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, understood, respected, loved for exactly who she was. And for the first time since all the drama began, she allowed herself to imagine a future. When Kwesi finally proposed to Adwoa, it wasn't a big public scene or a fancy royal gesture. It was simple, just the two of them sitting together after a long day, talking about their future. He held out a small ring and said, "Let's build something together, for real this time." Adwoa smiled and said yes without hesitation. But she made it clear, she didn't want a wedding like the ones everyone in Kumasi expected. No gold-carrying envoys, no traditional chief-like display. She and Kwesi wanted a wedding that reflected who they truly were, modern, simple, and full of tech. So they planned a wedding like no one in Kumasi had seen before. Instead of printed invitations, they sent out QR codes that people could scan on their phones. Those QR codes led to a sleek website, custom-built by Adwoa and Kwesi themselves. The site had everything: interactive maps showing the wedding location, the event schedule, and even a live streaming option for people who couldn't attend in person. There were no paper programs, just tablets placed around the venue. Instead of a traditional guest book, guests left video messages recorded at a digital booth. Word spread quickly. People across Ghana began talking about it online. Bloggers wrote articles titled, "The Tech Wedding Changing Kumasi." On social media, hashtags like #SerwaTechWedding and #ModernLove trended. Some people loved the idea, calling it fresh and bold. Others didn't understand it, wondering why Adwoa was once again doing things differently. But that didn't bother her. She had spent her whole life choosing her own path. Why stop now? The venue was a perfect mix of tradition and technology. Guests wore outfits blending Kent cloth with modern designs. Drones flew overhead, capturing the event from the sky. Large screens showed live updates and social media posts as people shared photos in real time. It wasn't about showing off. It was about sharing joy in a way that felt true to them. And in the middle of it all stood Adwoa. The morning of Adwoa and Kwesi's wedding felt different in Kumasi. From early hours, people gathered on the streets, not because they were invited, but because they didn't want to miss what everyone was calling the most talked about wedding in the city's history. Shops stayed closed, and markets slowed down as crowds lined up along the roads near the venue. Some stood on rooftops, others held their phones up, ready to capture anything they could. Even those who once whispered behind Adwoa's back came out to see what kind of wedding a woman like her would really have. As the ceremony began, Drones flew high above, capturing everything and streaming it live to thousands watching online. On big screens set up near the streets, people could see what was happening inside the venue. Guests walked in wearing outfits no one had ever seen before, bright, colorful Kent cloths mixed with futuristic fabrics and glowing tech accessories. There were no noisy drums or traditional royal displays. Instead, calm music mixed with soft electronic beats filled the air. Adwoa arrived not in a golden carriage or on foot like a royal bride, but in a simple electric car, stepping out with quiet confidence. Her dress wasn't huge or heavy. It blended tradition and modern style, with digital patterns that changed colors slowly as she walked. Kwesi stood waiting, wearing a suit that matched hers in color and design. Together, they didn't look like a chief and his queen. They looked like partners, ready to face the future together. Even people who had once judged her couldn't look away. Across Ghana, phones buzzed with notifications. Clips from the wedding, photos, and comments flooded social media. Radio stations talked about it. Some viewers smiled, others shook their heads, but everyone paid attention. Kumasi wasn't just watching a wedding. They were witnessing a story come full circle. A woman once shamed now standing proud, her choices on full display for the whole world. And as Adwoa stood beside Kwesi during the wedding, her family sat quietly among the guests, watching everything unfold. Her father, Kwabena Serwa, had kept a hard face for months, holding on to the belief that she had embarrassed the family. Her mother, Akojua, sat next to him, clutching a handkerchief in her hand. But as they saw Adwoa smiling, full of confidence and peace, something changed. It wasn't just the grand screens showing her face or the crowds cheering outside. It was seeing her so sure of herself, standing tall with someone who truly respected her. Her father watched as people greeted Adwoa with respect, not because she married a chief, but because of what she had built herself. There were no whispers of shame now, only admiration. Her mother wiped her eyes, not from sadness this time, but from quiet pride she couldn't hide anymore. Then, for the first time in a long while, Kwabena leaned forward, his voice calm but full of weight. He said, "I see now. You brought honor not by marrying a chief, but by becoming one in your own way." Those words hung in the air. Adwoa heard them, and her eyes softened. All the months of silence, all the distance, it melted in that moment. Her mother stood, walked to her, and without saying a word, pulled her into a hug. Tears fell down her mother's face, soaking into Adwoa's dress. People around them watched, understanding this was more than just a family reunion. It was healing in public view. Adwoa didn't need a royal title to make her family proud. She had written her own story, step by step, through her choices, her work, her love, and now even her parents saw it. In that moment, under the eyes of Kumasi and beyond, they weren't just celebrating a wedding. They were witnessing a family finally accepting that honor isn't about following tradition blindly. It's about being true to yourself, even when the whole world says you're wrong. After the wedding, Adwoa and Kwesi's names filled every corner of social media. Ghana Twitter was flooded with photos and videos of their tech-inspired wedding. Instagram Reels showed her dress changing colors, drones flying overhead, and guests dancing in futuristic Kent outfits. But while people talked about how different and beautiful the wedding looked, what truly made the story go viral wasn't just the celebration. It was Adwoa's journey, refusing to marry a chief, standing firm against family and tradition, and still creating a life that made everyone stop and watch. News blogs and radio shows picked up the story. They didn't just call her a bride, they called her a pioneer. Young women across Ghana and even beyond shared her videos with captions like, "If Adwoa can do it, so can we." Messages poured into her inbox, from girls asking for advice, from mothers thanking her for showing their daughters a new path. Adwoa's coding classes grew faster than she ever imagined. What started as a small group in a rented office turned into a full academy. Today, her school is called the Serwa Academy, named after herself but meant for every girl who dreams beyond what society tells her. Girls from small villages and big cities come to learn not just how to code, but how to stand on their own 2 feet. People still tell her story in Kumasi. Old market women who once whispered about her now proudly tell tourists, "That's Adwoa Serwa, the woman who changed everything." Children grow up hearing her name in classrooms, not just as a business owner, but as a woman who chose herself when everyone expected her to follow the old ways. And whenever someone mentions her name, the same sentence always comes up. Her family accused her of bringing shame for refusing to marry a chief, but her wedding trended for days. It's not just a story about a wedding anymore. It's about courage, choice, and proving that true honor comes from living your truth, no matter who tries to stop why.